The trade deadline is less than 8 days away, and the Toronto Raptors could be star hunting at the deadline. 6 All-Stars, ex-All-Stars, are available for trade, and 5 of them can be moved right now. Those 5 are Bradley Beal, Zach LaVine, De'Aaron Fox, Brandon Ingram, and Jimmy Butler. And one of those names, at least, has most recently been linked to the Toronto Raptors. But frankly, all of them have at some point or another been linked to the Toronto Raptors. And I have always believed that when a rumor comes out, but it's not really a rumor, it comes from Mark Stein or Shams, it's usually something that's being put out by the agent, by the player, by the team, by both teams. When something like this leaks, it's usually to the benefit of somebody and to the detriment of somebody else, right? So when all that stuff about Jimmy Butler came out, obviously someone was benefiting from it. It wasn't Jimmy. So I want to talk about why the Raptors would explore this, whether the Raptors can reasonably put together a competent offer for a star type player, and what that would look like and what that really means for what the Raptors are aiming for this season. Because honestly, you would not be alone in thinking, what are the Raptors even thinking trading for a win now piece? They need to be tanking right now. But I think that it's just common courtesy and perhaps due diligence. If you're an executive in the league and someone like De'Aaron Fox becomes available or Brandon Ingram becomes available, you do need to just ask, what exactly do you guys want for it? The situations are all very different, but they all stem from pretty much the same thing. It all comes back to money. With Bradley Beal and Zach LaVine, they make too much money and their teams perhaps want to go in another direction because the new CBA sort of penalizes teams that go that deep into the luxury tax, and neither of those players are necessarily producing at the level that their income or their current salary would suggest. The Lauri Markkanen situation perhaps is a little bit different. Lauri can't be traded this year, but certainly, he's an ex All-Star. A lot of people have opined that he would be an ideal fit next to Scotty Barnes. But at $43 million for a guy approaching his late 20s, maybe never a superstar type, do you really want to be paying these players? Frankly, I've always felt that second, third type of star that gets paid like a superstar, but isn't quite impacting the game much more than a really good starter, those contracts tend to burn you the most. The Michael Porter Juniors of the world, players like that. And the Raptors clearly have a lot of pieces that the league could be interested in. Teams around the league could be calling the Raptors and getting a feeler on, how do you feel about Emmanuel Quickly? How are you feeling about RJ Barrett? Certainly, those players are a little bit younger and a little bit cheaper than some of those players being offered. But if you're the Raptors, why do you even make this trade? Why would you want to swap an RJ Barrett for a Brandon Ingram? Do you even think that that's a sizable upgrade? I mentioned the situation with Lauri Markkanen, Bradley Beal, Zach LaVine. They get paid too much. The situation with Jimmy Butler and De'Aaron Fox and Brandon Ingram is a little bit different. Their situation pretty much stems from, they have short-term contracts and they might be too expensive to keep around for the teams that currently have them. With Jimmy Butler, he wanted an extension this offseason. He didn't get it, so he's been pouting. He's not very happy in Miami. Some team is going to take a flyer on a 35, 30, soon to be 36-year-old Jimmy Butler and are probably going to be really happy with it. The question is he going to be happy 2 years from now? And are you going to be happy 3 years from now when he does this again? That's the question with Jimmy. The question with someone like De'Aaron Fox is more, it's not urgent that the Kings have to make a move for De'Aaron Fox right now. But Fox has already mentioned that his preferred destination is Houston or specifically San Antonio. He wants to play with Victor Wembanyama. He would welcome a trade back to Houston. It's worth noting that there are big salary implications when you're moving from California into Texas because of state income tax. So maybe the Raptors aren't necessarily the premier destination that De'Aaron Fox would actually want to go to, but money talks. And if the Raptors are willing to sign long term with De'Aaron Fox, Toronto presents a much bigger market than Sacramento. I'm curious what the deal would look like. The Brandon Ingram one is very interesting because Brandon Ingram was an all-star a few years ago. He is a solid isolation scorer. The Raptors are almost dead last in isolation scoring in the league. Seems to be a bit of a talent upgrade over RJ Barrett. He's a marginally better defender than RJ Barrett, but he's older. Box Plus Minus says he's slightly worse than RJ Barrett this year. He's not that much better as a long distance shooter than RJ Barrett. He's certainly a lot more injury prone than RJ Barrett, and he's a lot more expensive than RJ Barrett. So if you're the Raptors, why would you make this deal? You won't make this deal. Now, let me twist this around. Are the Raptors trading for one of these stars? Probably not. I never want to rule it out and say hell no, because you never know what the offer is. Maybe it's Bruce Brown and Chris Boucher, in which case we can talk. Maybe. But I think if you're the Raptors, the reason this is getting leaked is because you're trying to change the perception around the league about where you're going with your team. Maybe trying to throw some people off, because we have found in Raptors history, it's really difficult to make a move when everybody knows you have to make a move. And it's even more difficult when everyone knows what that move is going to be. There were feelers put out about Fred VanVleet at the trade deadline when he was approaching unrestricted free agency. And the Raptors could not secure much in the way of a trade for Fred VanVleet at the time. The offer being thrown back to the Raptors was, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Grayson Allen plus a protected first. So the Raptors opted not to go for it back then, or maybe it was a protected second. I can't really remember. But the Raptors opted not to go for that. And then suddenly Fred VanVleet was worth $43 million to Houston. Well, if he was worth $43 million to Houston, why didn't Houston jump on trading for him, half a season early? Why didn't they offer something of value? Why couldn't they offer one of their young players or one of their multiple picks? And the truth is, they didn't have to, because they knew they could just get him, because they knew the Raptors weren't keeping him, because they knew that money talks, and the Raptors had pretty much stated to Fred VanVleet that they were willing to go as high as $25 million to keep him. And if he can throw that out with his agent, and his agent can tell Houston, tampering doesn't exist in the NBA, by the way, that this is what you're going to have to pay to get my guy, they don't have to give up anything. And it's a similar situation that you're in right now with Bruce Brown and Chris Boucher, because the general consensus around the league is the Raptors are not interested in keeping these older guys for long-term money. And maybe there's also something that's been out there that Bruce Brown might get bought out. He's not really a part of the long-term plans. So if you're the Toronto Raptors and you're approaching teams and saying, hey, we want to, get a first-round pick back for Bruce Brown, other people are looking at you like, why should I give you a first-round pick for someone you're about to throw away? Why should I give you a first-round pick for someone that you're not even planning to bring back? Why should I give you a first round pick when you're trying to play your young guys and tank, and you're not even going to play Bruce Brown after the trade deadline? I'm calling your bluff. It's a game of chicken. And basically, the Raptors are stuck playing game of chicken with the entire league, and the league is not biting, because everybody knows that when you're a really bad team, that you're going to tank. So I think what the Raptors are doing by creating this mirage that they're interested in De'Aaron Fox, that they're interested in Brandon Ingram, is they're really trying to sell the league on an alternative reality. And that alternative reality is, we believe in Scotty Barnes. We believe he can go right to the playoffs right now and be one of the best players in the league. We believe that if we get enough help for him right now, that we can sort of rebuild this on the fly and chase the playoffs right now, in which case we're actually looking to keep our veterans, because if we have Scotty plus Brandon Ingram or Scotty plus De'Aaron Fox, well, we think we have enough to actually go and maybe take a couple games from the Celtics, maybe have a chance in a series against Cleveland. Look, I'm not even going to argue that Scotty Barnes plus De'Aaron Fox is a hell of a tandem. I'm not going to argue that Brandon Ingram is a bit of a talent upgrade over RJ Barrett. What I would say is, why would you do it? If you're the Toronto Raptors, why get so expensive and older unless you really do believe Scotty's about to take this monumental superstar step? I think this is a big bluff. I think this is a bluff meant to change the negotiating power that the Raptors have at these, deadline discussions. Because right now, I believe the Raptors are getting lowballed for all of their assets. I don't believe anyone is offering you firsts for Bruce Brown. I've heard bucket of picks in our last live that we were able to do. Someone said, I want to get a bucket of picks for these players. I'm sorry, not in the modern NBA, not in the new CBA. I don't think you're going to get a bucket of picks. I think you'll be lucky to get a couple seconds at this point for guys like Bruce Brown and Chris Boucher. And for the Raptors, they have a vested interest in trying to change that outcome by hopefully winning enough games right now, exhibiting these guys. And of course, I haven't even talked about Davion Mitchell. The Raptors can do some really interesting stuff. And if you're the New Orleans Pelicans, I think this is also very helpful to you for this to be out there, that, hey, there's a suitor for our guy, Brandon Ingram, because prior to this Raptors report, I had not heard about anybody wanting Brandon Ingram for months. So, to the Raptor fans kind of panicking, like, oh my God, are we about to just destroy this tank? And are we just about to go all in on these guys? Are we thinking about keeping Bruce Brown and Kelly Olynyk? Are we going to shaft all of our young players and all the development? Are we going to completely pull ourselves out of the Cooper Flag sweepstakes? I would say be patient. I don't have a crystal ball. I can't tell you 100% one way or the other if the Raptors are going to tank or if the Raptors are going to pull it apart. What I will tell you, though, is when it comes to tanking time, this team is so good. Last year, if you saw at the end of the year how they were able to pull this team apart and rest everybody, granted, you had some injury luck there, but I don't think that it's going to be that difficult to get Jakob Poeltl and guys like that to sit out and then just sort of rotate one star with like 8 G League players and 2 young guys as your rotation every single night. I think if you pull the trigger on a Bruce Brown or Kelly Olynyk trade or a Bruce Brown and Chris Boucher trade, your odds of winning most games just go through the floor because those guys have been so impactful for you, and there's just a know-how with how they play. I also think Davion Mitchell contributes to winning in a meaningful way in the sense that he's really the first layer of that defense, and if you get rid of him, I think your defense is going to fall off a little bit. So again, I would feel a lot differently about the Raptors right now if they were winning with their core. If Grady had taken some 20-point per game scorer leap, if RJ and Scotty and Emmanuel quickly were just playing super well, and that's how you were winning, I think I would feel a little bit differently about it. And maybe I could then sell myself on, okay, maybe you can take some reinforcements here. This is a team that's showing itself to be ready. Right now, it feels like you're winning because of Chris Boucher, Bruce Brown, Kelly Olynyk. You're winning because of a lot of guys who frankly aren't going to be here for a very long time and or potentially are not going to be in their prime for a very long time. And it really does remind me of 2023 when Jakob Poeltl plus Fred VanVleet, the ultimate soon-to-be free agent pick and roll, dominated and decimated some injury depleted, and some very bad teams. And of course, you go up against Chicago, and DeMar DeRozan's daughter sinks you. And it really makes you think, what did that net rating even mean? That number that people keep talking about that, oh, look at their net rating, their starters. This is elite. I mean, if you sold yourself on Jakob Poeltl being a top 10 center because Masai Ujiri sold you on Jakob Poeltl being a top 10 center, I don't know what to tell you. He's not a top 10 center, but he's a decent player. But I'm reminded, and I don't want to be rude when I say this. But Masai Ujiri has done a lot of press conferences, and I love Masai Ujiri. Please understand, he is really one of my favorite human beings in the world. Forget basketball executives. I've learned a lot from him. But I do smell the bullshit sometimes, and I do want to call it out. When the Raptors got Scotty Barnes, they were not supposed to get Scotty Barnes. I think that's worth noting. The Raptors were 7th going into the lottery. They lucked up and they went to 4th. Now, that is very fortunate because that is a very good draft. But I got news for you. OKC really wanted Scotty more than they wanted Suggs. Orlando really wanted Scotty more than they wanted Suggs. The Raptors probably explored moving down, but when Scotty started shooting up draft boards, they knew if we move past 4, we're not getting this guy. But the truth is, you were supposed to pick 7th or 8th. The lottery odds tilted in your favor that day. The year they won the draft lottery for the first time ever with Andrea Bargnani in 2006, they were the 5th and they lucked out. Now, you can say you don't want to destroy an entire season for a few lottery balls, and I understand that, but you got to buy a ticket to sometimes play the lottery. And for the Raptors right now, there's a bit of a gap between themselves and the 6th team, which is the Portland Trailblazers. The Portland Trailblazers just beat the Milwaukee Bucks last night. And I do think that it's worth noting that the more wins you add right now, the harder it's going to be to pull back. Now, right now, you're 6th. Last year, you were also 6th. Last year, your 6th place finish ended up at 8th. This year, I don't necessarily think 8th is going to be all that bad from a lottery perspective. But any further down than 8, and I think you really do miss a chance at potentially adding an young all-star level talent to this core. The reason that I say, the Masai Ujiri thing is because so often we've heard Masai Ujiri present that whole thing like he knew he was going to get Scotty Barnes all along. Oh, the Tampa tank. Even when we lost, what did we win? We won Scotty Barnes. It's so interesting to me that a general manager or an executive who missed out on Giannis Antetokounmpo because he didn't have a first round pick, missed out on Shea Gilgeous-Alexander because he didn't have a first round pick. I mean, he identified these guys. His scouts did their job. He did his job. Knowing is only half the equation. Then you have to go and get that player. Now, I can argue he didn't do enough to get Giannis. If you knew Giannis was going to be this good or even 80% this good, you should have traded everything to get him. That includes Kyle, DeMar, and 10 first round picks if you knew he was going to be this good. I understand it doesn't always work that way, but you got to trust your gut. Sometimes you just got to trust your gut. It's interesting to me, though, that the general manager who does so well in the draft, the president who has done so well in the draft, whose entire career has been built on how well he's done in the draft, has missed out on two perennial MVP candidates because he didn't have a draft pick that year. Now, the first one wasn't his fault. Brian Colangelo traded that pick for Kyle Lowry, but the second one was his fault. And I got to tell you, the Toronto Raptors had a chance at Victor Wembanyama. They did in 2023. And I was very devastated. If you remember, if you're a longtime community member, you remember my reaction at the trade deadline when they traded for Jakob Poeltl. And I screamed. I was on the call with Vince and I screamed, no. And I was so upset because I knew what that meant. And it wasn't just about Victor. Look at what Amen Thompson is doing right now. Again, no disrespect to Grady, but he has not been a top 5 player from that draft class. And you do wonder what a core of Scotty plus Amen could look like right now. Amen went 4th in that draft. 4th. You were 6th. The team that picked 3rd had an almost identical record to you the minute you made that trade. But no, it was too important to let Fred VanVleet chase a contract. And that upset me because there was some real talent available at the top of that draft. And instead, the Raptors ended up picking 13th. Well, I don't think they're going to pick 13th this year, but you don't want history to repeat itself. And the reason that I was saying that I was critical of Masai is because it's just fortune that you got Scotty Barnes. Because right now, I don't even want to think about where you'd be if you had drafted Jonathan Kuminga like you were supposed to when you had the 7th pick or the 8th pick potentially. So again, I don't think this is something that Raptor fans need to panic about. I think internally, this front office has a really good idea of what they want to do. I think they're really high on this draft. And I think the more likely scenario is that they're going to add draft picks. I do, however, think that it's really important to realize that not everything in the news is true. And not everything in the news is leaked because it really happened. Sometimes a team just has a handshake deal with another team to say, we want to mislead the world about what we're doing. You want to mislead the world about what you're doing. Let's just express interest in each other's guys. You know what I mean? Like if, I don't know, you have a wink wink deal with the Miami Heat or the Denver Nuggets. I don't know why you would have a wink wink deal with them saying the Raptors rejected a first round pick for Bruce Brown. I think that really sort of ups the ante for all those teams that are trying to dangle a second. They're thinking, oh, I mean, we have to beat that offer. Okay, well, maybe Bruce Brown. Hey, if that guy that I respect, RC Buford, is offering a first round pick for Bruce Brown, maybe I should offer a first round pick for Bruce Brown. And again, I think that it's really helpful that right now the Raptors trade targets are playing really well. And I do want to say that it's not an accident. Bruce Brown has talked a lot about how he wants to play. He's talked about playing with the basketball. And just in case you have forgotten, this is what Bruce Brown averaged in the finals just 2 years ago. 11.4 points, 27 minutes. He shot 37% from 3, nearly 46% from the field, 1.8 stocks. He had over an assist per game, 4.4 rebounds per game. I mean, this was a guy who had the entire league offering mid-level. He was considered the ultimate plug-and-play role player. And right now, he's not even worth a second. I find that very hard to believe. On an expiring? No. Look, the Raptors have had some very, very bad luck trading players when they were not in a situation to extract full value. Vince Carter, Eric Williams, Aaron Williams will haunt my dreams forever. Pascal Siakam, 3 firsts. For real? For a 2-time All-NBA guy? Why did we wait so long? Fred VanVleet, walk for nothing. Kyle Lowry, Precious Achua, and the corpse of Goran Dragic. Come on now. We can do better than this. Tracy McGrady walked for nothing. There's so many guys who've left this franchise for nothing. Kawhi walked for nothing. Again, that was always going to happen. I understand that. I'm not complaining about that. What I'm saying is the Raptors cannot keep letting assets go for nothing. What they did this summer is probably, what they need to do again. They need to find a perfect situation. They need to find a team that's a little bit desperate. I genuinely think, as much as I think this is a bluff, I don't think it's a bluff to say that Bruce Brown, Kelly Olynyk, Davion Mitchell potentially, and Chris Boucher can help a contender right now as an eighth or ninth guy off the bench. Bro, Chris is averaging nearly 11 points in 17 minutes per game. I mean, I shudder to think what the math is on that on a bigger role with a better team. He's doing this with like terrible spacing too. I feel like some team out there needs these guys. I think for the Raptors, putting out all these rumors is basically trying to up the ante and really maximize their leverage position. So let me know what you think in the comments. Again, just a reminder, YouTube has restricted our ability to do lives because of a copyright strike based on me playing or airing the Scotty Barnes NBA TV video. Hopefully it's back soon. I read somewhere it could be a 90-day ban. I am really worried about it being a 90-day ban. I would not know what to do if I had to miss the entire trade deadline, but 90 days still falls before the draft, but that's going to be like the rest of the season. I don't even know what I'm going to do. And to those asking, to those of you asking, no, I can't just do it on another channel. So I will have to find something else to do. Like I'll have to find some other way to do it. Maybe it'll be a members only community chat with like a private video. I have no idea, but hopefully it's lifted in a week. My account says it. You know, again, I've heard different things. Tonight, I'm gonna do a post game for the Wizards game. The Wizards Raptors play at 7 o'clock. I'm going to do a post game reaction for that. And then I'm going to actually post a 35 to 40-minute video reacting to the game. And I'm going to post it. I'm going to try to post it as a premiere. And what that will do is we can watch it together. So even though I won't be able to react to you, I'll be in the chat and we can at least still have some element of that community stuff. I really hope it's not 90 days, guys. Anyways, I do want to let y'all know tickets, not just passes, but tickets for the Pendance Film Festival are now on sale, including that wonderful basketball documentary, Basketball State, which is now premiering in Canada on Sunday afternoon, March 2nd. I hope you will be there. I really do, because I think Pendance this year is going to be sick. Talk to y'all later. Have a great one. Enjoy the game.